Hey everybody, this is Ryan with Corvus Lore, and you are watching CMS TV, Classic Metal Show.
You know this song, it's called Metal Queen.
CHRIS Akin Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Akin, and I am thrilled to have this lady back on the show once again. Seems like it's becoming a yearly thing, which is a good thing. She is back with a brand new release, which is kick-ass. It is called Elevate, and here to talk all about it is the metal queen herself, Miss Lee Aaron. Lee, how are you? Excellent. Well, Lee, you're back. You have another album. It is fantastic. It's came at us awful quick from the last one. So why don't we start there? Tell us a little bit about Elevate and how it came to us so quickly.
We weren't able to put our radio on properly, obviously, because it was released still in the middle of COVID. It's interesting, because really, COVID restrictions only started lifting in like May of this year. And here we are a few months later, and sort of everybody kind of forgets that it happened. Right. And that we were like, our lives were shut down for like literally almost 2 years, right? Mm-hmm. So we literally were able to do 2 shows last summer. And then it was sort of like, nope, this is not happening. Everything's shut. We had a bunch of shows that got postponed into the future. And we're like, well, I guess we need to go make another record. So we literally just took a leap of faith, booked some studio time, and forced ourselves to get it together and to write some more songs. And, it was really good for us, I think, just even like emotionally and mentally as a band, because we had a focus and we had another goal, and it kept us, kept our minds fresh and gave us a project to focus on during those last, that last home stretch of COVID lockdown, which was wonderful. So, and Elevate, there it is. It's our COVID baby.
Exactly. Now, Lee, was Elevate written at the same time as the last record? Was this like one big writing process because you had 2 years off, or is it 2 distinct writing processes, beginning of COVID and middle of COVID, I guess?
Yeah, so Radio One was actually written before COVID.
Okay.
We had gotten together. My idea for that record, and I don't know, I probably explained this the last time we talked, for Radio One was we flew Sean out from Toronto, because we're a bi-coastal band here in Canada. Flew him out, and I said, bring your A game and bring your best 3 or 4 song ideas. And we literally got together in a room for a weekend, like a garage band, and jammed out Radio On. That's how we wrote Radio On. Because we were in lockdown, we were kind of forced to do the sending files back and forth process. So that's how Elevate was written. So they were 2 distinct writing processes. So I prefer writing the other way, but for us, it was just really healthy to keep the creativity going.
Sure.
So we did that. And my other idea, when obviously we went in to record this, when COVID had opened up enough that we were allowed to be, I think when we went into the studio to record the tracks, we were allowed to all be in the studio together, a limited amount of people wearing mostly masks, right? Mm-hmm. When we got close to each other. So that's what we had done for the recording process. But my idea was, because we had done it by writing files, and I I'm a real believer in not being over rehearsed and that having that spontaneity kind of shine through on the album. I said, like, let's just fly in and like, we'll just get together for one evening of pre-production. So we literally got together, brought all the tracks that we had pieced together in our demo studios for Elevate, and then learned the songs and in one evening and figured out what the actual arrangements on the recording live off the floor would be. So they weren't over rehearsed, which I think brought that level of kind of organicness and spontaneity to the recording. So
sure, it gives it that true rock and roll feel. It doesn't feel like it's over processed and over polished.
Well, good. I'm glad, because I don't want to make records like that. So, yeah. So I was kind of like, we're going to go in a little bit under rehearsed, and then, sometimes the mistakes that you make, as long as we're recording as a band, which we always are, we were like bass, drums, and guitar were all recorded simultaneously off the floor. Sometimes the mistakes that end up kind of being like happy accidents, like Bob Ross would say,
Sure.
and they're keepers, right? So, yeah, I'm a real believer in that.
Absolutely. So. Well, the one thing I do have to commend you on, many things, but this is one of the things I have to commend you on is with Elevate, is I don't know how you wrote such an amazingly up record at such an amazingly difficult time. How was it that you were able to keep such a kind of a positive message throughout the music when clearly you were in the same boat we all were, which was kind of depressed, kind of hating being locked down?
I agree with you in that I think musically, like the energy of the music and everything is very, very uplifting. But the first single, like Rock Bottom Revolution, it's kind of like a subversive rock anthem. So it's sort of about how messed up the world is in terms of, and I guess, maybe I was just watching a little too much news during COVID, and it was like we all were, right? Like, paying attention to all this craziness going on in the world. Because I think people were going a little bit squirrely in it. Social media was being used in a lot of negative ways, like it was being weaponized, and it was being used to mobilize people in very negative ways. And so I guess a little bit of that definitely lyrically shines through in some of the music, but the music itself, I'm a real believer in that it needs to take you to a better place. So even though those songs might have a slightly subversive message, like Elevate and Rock Bottom Revolution, it's meant to be, it's meant to be like a wake-up call kind of tune, right? If that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. And then there's other songs, though, like Freak Show as an example, which is an example kind of what we all should be doing, which is just telling everybody to get over their bullshit and get back to living in harmony. At least that's the way it felt to me. Well,
you're spot on about that one. That's just a song inspired by, the fact that there's this real culture of like other, right? Like not like me, they're those other people, right? And you find that when you meet people, I live in a very diverse neighborhood in my community, and I have friends from all different kinds of cultures, faiths, religions, mindsets, and I might not agree with all of them, but 99% of them are really, really good people. And, you realize the older you get and the wiser you get, the more you think we're different, the more we're really all the same. And that's what Freak Show is about.
Right on. Definitely. Now, Lee, you worked with Mike Frazier, who's obviously super well known, whether AC/DC, Aerosmith, etc. Fantastic producer. For you as an artist, somebody who's, done this for a little while now, and you've done it on all levels. You've done it with major labels, you've done it independently, etc. What is it about a guy like Mike that you feel you couldn't or don't enable yourself to do by yourself where you bring him in?
Boy, oh boy. you know, he's just able to, he's got this magic thing where he can dial in these sounds, right? And I don't necessarily have the capability to do that, nor does anybody else in my band. I mean, we do record ourselves and certain sections of our tracks at home, but and even like, I love what Sean Kelly does, but he can't dial in that sound that Mike can get, right? Like Mike just has this sort of, it's like the magic recipe. When I first started working with him, he said, I love recording and mixing, and I love cooking, because he said cooking reminded him a lot of mixing, in that there were so many like flavors and nuances and things that you could bring into a recipe, just like mixing. And I went, I never ever even like, I'm not a great cook either. So it's like, it's not really in my wheelhouse to want to spend hours in the kitchen doing that. He's got a lot more patience than I do. And that's why, to me, he's just like the dream mix engineer, right?
Sure.
I mean, so what we do when we work together is Mike will go, hey, I'll text you when I'm a couple hours away. And so he pulls the mix together to the place where he thinks I'm going to like it. And then I come into the studio, or we come into the studio, depending on who. It was mostly me, but whoever else was available to come in for mixes. Sometimes that's Dave, because he also lives locally. And we come in and we have a listen, and then I just get him, I go like, I really could hear the bass a bit louder in this song, and can you get a little more of an edge on it? And like, so what he then does is he dials it into a specific place where I'm hearing more of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or I know a couple times I came in, he's like, I love this, but I don't know where to put this keyboard thing you did. And I'm like, how about we squeeze it and make it sound really small and stick it up in the upper left corner of the sound realm there. And, he's just wonderful to work with.
Sure. Are there times when you're working with him, or with any production guy, but specifically him, because he's, been super unbelievably successful? Are there times where you have to push back, where he says, I like this, and you say, no? Does that happen or not really?
I never had that experience with Mike, because Mike he's not playing a producer role in this band.
Okay.
I have had that experience with producers
Sure.
in the past when I was younger, where they were, they've got the label talking to them in this ear going, we want to hear blah, 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 this. And I'm going, well, that's not how I see my art. I see it this way, and it's slightly different visions. But no, Mike is, I've never had that experience with him.
Okay.
So yeah, he's, and I have to tell you, like, Mike is the kind of guy, if he, and I got to tell you, the best producers in the world, sorry, maybe I'm not articulating this all that well. The best producers in the world, you don't end up in a situation like that, like a pushback situation. To me, the being a great producer is going, wow. Like, and I know that I do that when I'm in the studio. Like, I love that little lick that you just played. Could you repeat that? Right. On this part? Do you just humor me? Play it and let's see how it sounds. And then you get it, then you go, basically you draw the very, very best out of the artist you're working with, or the musician you're working with, and put it on repeat. Get them to do, you know what I mean? Like, you're drawing the best out of that person in an amiable and uplifting way, not a battle.
Sure. Definitely.
To me, that's not an energy that makes good records. To me, so.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Now, Lee, up to this point, up to today, we do not have a video, which I'm surprised, because you've done videos for the last few. But you were telling me right before we started that we might have something coming soon. What can we look forward to if we're YouTubers?
Revolution is going to drop within 48 hours, and I was given a deadline by the label, which was the 28th of the month, but I believe it's going to be uploaded by the 27th. So,
Okay.
yeah, and then you'll have your first single, and it's super cool. I worked with a gentleman named Frank Greiner out of Toronto. He's amazing. He's done videos for so many people. He's a producer and digital video guru. And yeah, he's put together something quite fabulous for that song, and I can't wait for you to see it.
Excellent. Well, we're going to let people see it right now because by the time this comes out, I'll have the video.
Yeah.
So let's do it right now. Let's check it out. This is brand new from Lee Aaron right here on CHRIS Akin Presents.
Wasteland. It's the weapon in your hand. Uncle Billy gets a grandstand, a shotgun in a minivan. America, the promised land. Rise up, said the man. It's a rock revolution. Rock bottom revolution. It's an institution. Down, baby.
That was a brand new video from Lee Aaron from the new album Elevate, which is out now. And please go out there and get it. And when I say get it, I don't just mean stream it. You can certainly stream it, but please buy it wherever you can buy it because that helps the artists. So please do so. And Lee, talking about this new album, and really all of your work, it's obviously your name on the cover, and you're the one that's had, the success for the last, I don't even want to say how many years, because it just doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has. That being said, you've got a great band, and specifically Sean, who I'm a huge fan of. I've known Sean for a lot of years, and he's underrated beyond belief, an amazing player, writer, etc. With that said, how much creative input do you give your band members in the process? I mean, do you write the music and then have them kind of match what you wrote, or do you give them freedom to bring their own thing to the music, or where is that balance at?
We've explained this before, but I'm happy to explain it again. I write all the lyrics mostly, and all of the top line melodies, the choruses and things like that, for the most part. But I invite, to me, what makes me the best artist I can be is to be working with my favorite people. And so obviously John has been in my band for 20 years. He's my husband. He's the drummer.
Sure.
Dave Reimer and I have worked together for about 16 years. And Sean came into the fold about 8 years ago, and it became very apparent, the first rehearsal we had with him, we're like, dude, you need to be in our band. And so it's a very much a collective. And so, obviously, if I sat down and wrote every single song start to finish myself, it would sound different. I love what the guys in my band do. I think they're all everybody is a gifted songwriter and arranger in this band. So when we're ready to make a record, I it's wide open, and Sean is constantly sending me stuff. And so sometimes that's just a riff. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 parts together that, he's hearing that go together, and he gives it to me to write on top of. Sometimes it is me coming in with a song that's pretty much formed already on piano, and then the guys add their stuff and take it to another level. But the chord changes don't change. Sometimes Dave brings in a song that he's got, a couple parts for and a melody that he's singing, but he doesn't have the words, and he needs me to write the words. So obviously, though, it goes through my filter because I'm the one that goes, I like that idea, but I don't hear it as a Lee Aaron song.
Sure.
Like it has to resonate with me first, because then it's going to sound authentically like something Lee Aaron would do. But so, yeah, maybe some of the songs I've written more of, and some of them maybe Dave has written a little more of, but the way we split, we do a 100% four-way split.
Okay.
All the material when it's in the end. Because, yeah, I mean, it's just by the time everybody brings their input to the table, and, there's not a lot of incentives these days, especially, when you're getting paid on Spotify 0.0002 cents
Right.
per stream. What incentive is there except, to be able to get a writing credit on these songs, right? Like it just, so of course we just make it a carte blanche four-way
Sure.
split.
Absolutely.
The material. And that's all I really have to say is by the time we all bring our stuff to the table, it's really a very collective effort. And, but in a great way, it's the Lee Aaron Band, and it sounds like a rock band.
Right. It definitely does. Well, let's dig into a couple of the songs, Lee, before we finish this one up. I got to say my favorite song on the record is Deep in the Record. I love the sassy confidence, which is not uncommon for you at all, from Spitfire Woman. Definitely not uncommon at all for what you do. What was the genesis behind that song and the lyrics to that one?
Years ago, I got flown around by my label to LA, New York, Nashville, all kinds of places. That was a real modus operandi in the 80s, right? To go write with the hit makers. And sometimes that was successful, sometimes it was not. But I was writing with a guy named Todd Cerny in Nashville in 87, 88. I can't even exactly remember. And I remember him telling us this crazy story, telling me and John Albini about this couple that him and his wife knew. They were local, and because we were looking for song material to write about, and we were working on this idea that was a little bit dark. And he was telling us this story about this guy who had been unfaithful to his wife, and she found out, and she was a real firecracker, and she absolutely lost it on him. And they had this big hanging rack in their kitchen with pots and pans, and she grabbed a cast iron frying pan off this rack, and in the middle of a heated argument, clocked him in the side of the head, and not with the intention of killing him, but
Right.
Oh well, that's what happened. And yeah, this crazy crime of passion. And I never wrote about it because it didn't really connect with me at that juncture in my life when I was really young. But now that I'm older, I've been married for years, and I think of, how would I feel if something like that happened, and I was, when we came up with that music, I was thinking, whoa, this needs like a dark crime story. And that was always percolating in the back of my head, that story. So it ended up becoming a song. So,
Sure. Well,
yeah.
and the other one, which I'm going to assume, and you can tell me I'm wrong, I'm assuming this is way more personal, is the song Red Dress, because that just feels very personal. Is it personal? And what was going on when you, not necessarily when you wrote it, but when you performed it or sang it for, I'm assuming, your husband for the first time?
He's well aware of the song. Of course, the general gist of that song is, a long-term love story
Sure.
that still has passion, right? But I kind of stole from my past and my present for that, because the first verse is really reflective of an earlier relationship I had in my life.
Okay.
We were big Prince fans, and anyway, and that gentleman unfortunately passed away from COVID. I know I don't want to get dark here, but so when I wrote that song, I was kind of in the middle of some grief for that. And I thought, and my husband and today, we always joke around and we always go because we both have had former relationships, and
Sure.
in a perfect world, wouldn't it be wonderful if you were one of those people that, the old people with gray hair holding hands that have been together 50 years, but if our first relationships had all worked out, but here we are, many
Right.
years later. And that song is just, it's about the ideal long-term relationship,
Excellent.
and that was the inspiration for that one.
Great. Now, Lee, we're still in a weird time, I think, as far as the world. I mean, it's open, but it's kind of open. And in some places it's not, which I don't know now what that does for bands as far as planning and trying to tour. So for you, do you have touring plans? Are you still kind of waiting to see what shakes out for 2023? I mean, what are the touring plans going forward?
Is trying to open up as fully as possible. We're getting on a plane and going to France in 48 hours. So
Okay.
I'm excited about that.
Sure.
For what we've sort of got a system in the band that's working really well for us, where we're not sort of necessarily going out on because of what I've noticed is bands that are going on these big, long back-to-back dates tours, quite often they've got to abandon a few shows, like Ringo Starr was supposed to come to my town a couple of weeks ago. I was going to see him with my son and husband, and he had to cancel because of COVID. So it kind of sets up a dynamic where you're, setting yourself up to possibly get COVID. When we flew back from Sweden, that we did in June, my bass player got COVID, but thankfully we had no more shows coming up, so he was able to recover. So we found that doing little pockets of shows or
Okay.
one-offs has been quite effective. Everybody's healthy. Let's go do a show,
Right.
So we're going to France. We're coming back. I just booked a couple of shows for the new year. Going to Winnipeg, and we're going to be in Toronto. So mostly major centers.
Okay.
You're going to see me in 2023. I'll be out there. And I'm doing Monsters of Rock. I forgot about that.
Oh.
In April. So I'm late April, early May. I'm excited about that as well.
Very good. Well, lots of good stuff coming up, including this release, which everybody should get. It's called Elevate. It is Lee Aaron. And Lee, where should we tell people to go to keep up with you and tour dates and all that good stuff?
Probably the best place is leeaaron.com, which is my website. And you can connect to all my socials. It's leeaaron.music on Instagram, Lee Aaron Music on Facebook. And you can find me there and catch up and see what I'm up to.
Very good. Well, one more time, the album is called Elevate. It is Lee Aaron. And Lee, thanks so much for joining me here on Chris Akin Presents.
It was an absolute pleasure, Chris. Take care. Rock on.